Finally got your train.
It finally sunk in. Just want to take this time to welcome our visitors with us, and we're having a great day today, and I'm trying to kill some time here while Randy gets his magic fingers walking back there. You ready? I'm not done.
Do you want to announce, please?
Oh, Stacy and Brian, I think, are coming home today, and the baby's name is Colby Brian. Colby Brian. So, and I've seen a picture already, and he knows.
His last name is Fiskus.
Right. I thought you knew. All right. Okay, I'm going to ask Alan to word a prayer after we sing this song. We're going to sing number 154. Give me the Bible, and then we're going to turn it over to Brother Webster. Brother Webster is from Memphis, Tennessee. That's in the United States. Not some third world country. So it's been great having him. I don't know, I really enjoyed hearing him, and I think everybody show on that. So sing this song, have a prayer, and he can take it over. Randy's going to have to kind of help out with the schedule here. I don't know what, you have any idea what's going on? Well, I know that, but are we breaking? Okay. 9 to...
We'll take a 15-minute break, 9:45.
I'm sorry?
Let's take a break at 9:45.
Okay. And then at 10 a.m., okay, then you're going to take another break at 10:45.
Yeah.
So it's about, okay, gotcha. All right. 154. Give me the Bible, sorrow, and sweet, to cheer the wonder, love and tempest tossed. No storm can hide that radiance peaceful be.
So, two congregations in one area, one grows and one dies.
Activity.
What's the difference?
Active.
It's people, active people. You think about three questions that we will visit together today in various ways that will determine the success of the congregation. And if you wanted to put it on a micro level, will determine my personal success. Those three questions are, how much am I willing to care? 2, how involved am I willing to get? And 3, what am I going to let stop me? Those three questions. How much am I willing to care? Christianity is the religion of love. And if we do marvelous things, giving our bodies to be burned or others that Paul mentions in 1 Corinthians 13, but do it without love, it profits nothing. But also the truth of that is, if we don't have love, we're not going to stay motivated to be evangelists very long. We might have a seminar or a sermon or read a book that motivates us, guilts us into evangelism, but that's short-lived. You know, we may do it a day or two, we'll get discouraged. We may do it a week or two, we'll get discouraged. But if our motivation comes from the inside instead of the outside, if it comes out of our heart and a heart filled with love, then that's a sustaining model that will keep me going back even when I meet with discouragement, even when I don't meet with immediate success, because my motivation is not based on externals, it's based on who I am and what God means to me. So, love is the basis. So, how much am I willing to care? 2, how involved am I willing to get? That's what this first lesson is about. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, forasmuch as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Now, many of the things that we do in life don't really matter in the big picture. We have to do them to sustain our families and the physical situation in which we live. We have to earn a living to pay the bills. But those things are not significant in the big picture. But the things that we do for God will always matter. The person that I talk to about the gospel, that person will remember that conversation on Judgment Day. And if I'm able to convince this person, teach this person, and lead them to the Lord, then on Judgment Day they will hear a different sentence than they will otherwise. Come into the joys of thy Lord instead of depart from me, I don't know you. And can be the pivot between that. I can be the bridge that takes a person from the world into the church, which is the place of salvation. So, always abounding. Christianity's never been the bare minimum religion. Somebody says, well, how many services do I have to come? Somebody says, well, how many people do I have to convert to go to heaven? How good do I have to be? Well, those are the wrong questions. It's not about the bare minimum. It's about how much can I do? How much will the Lord allow me to accomplish? What is there that I can do more than I've done before? And I think in John 15, 1-7, you have Jesus talking about He's the vine and we're the branches. And in that, He talks about fruit. I mentioned this on Sunday, but I'll revisit it here. As a farmer, as the vine, what's the point? You have a grapevine, what's the point? Grapes, right? If you have a grapevine and it looks pretty and it's got nice leaves, but it never has any grapes on it, then that's a failure, right? That vine isn't doing what it was supposed to do. The same thing is true of me as a branch on the vine of Christ. It's all about fruit. So He's looking for fruit. He comes to my life, and just like you would go to that grapevine and maybe pick the leaves up and look under and see, are there any grapes here? So He's looking at my life and He's saying, is there any fruit here? And there are degrees of fruit in that text. And it's very similar to the parable of the sower, where Jesus said the good soil brought forth some 30, some 60, some 100-fold. Well, in John 15, he talks about fruit, more fruit, much fruit. So 3 different levels. So if I'm at a fruit level, that's great. But he prunes me, so I'll move up a level. You know, my dad, he had every kind of plant. You know, he planted gardens and plum trees and every kind of tree. And we had grapes and we had muscadines. We had all kinds of things. But grapes, he would go out, and of course, I would go out there with him and watch it. And he would go out there I guess it was the spring, I don't remember the time of year, but maybe it was in the fall. He would cut that grapevine that had grown really long that season. He had cut it all the way back to just a stump. And it looked like he had killed it. I said, well, that thing's not going to live after you cut about 90% of it off. But you know, it's the new growth that produces the fruit. And the same root system is supporting it, so it would put that back on pretty fast. And the same thing is true with us. You know, he prunes us. That pruning is, I guess from the plant's perspective, it's not pleasant. You know? Well, in my life, sometimes the pruning is not pleasant. You know, the challenges to my faith and the difficulties that I have to face circumstantially can be hard, but they prune me in the sense that they help me to focus on what's really important in life. 1 Corinthians 3:12-15. We have to go through the fire, and the fire burns up the wood, hay, stubble, but it purifies the gold and the silver and doesn't injure the precious stones talked about in that text. Now, so be steadfast and unmovable, always abound in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. So on the judgment day, what we do in evangelism will matter. Now, God does not expect us to be successful. That's His desire, that's our desire, but that's not what we're judged on. We're not judged on if the person obeys the gospel. We're judged on if we taught the person. Because we cannot control their reaction to the gospel. That's on them. That was on you when you obeyed the gospel. You accepted it, you became a Christian, and the person who taught you will receive a reward for that. 1 Corinthians 3, the same passage, 12-15. But what we are held responsible for and what God will reward us for is we're going to have, that we have done what He said to do. And if we have success, we get even more reward. So it's a blessing both ways. Now, what we're going to do in the balance of our time is look at 2 charts, one of 7 and one of 10. We won't spend much time on the 7, but it's just a baseline, because I want all of us to see where we are on the baseline of involvement in the church. And then we will move over and talk about 10 levels of evangelism. So the 7 levels of involvement in a local church. And everybody that sits in all these pews, or whatever pews there are where you worship normally, can be classified in one of these 7 groups. The first one is Sunday morning attendance only. Sunday morning attendance only. There are some that I met Sunday morning I haven't seen again in this congregation. And if I'd been at any other congregation in this area, it would have been the same, right? There are some that's the degree of their involvement in the local church, is they come Sunday mornings for worship. Now, I used to maybe be a little too harsh on that group. They ought to be more involved. They ought to be giving all that they can for the Lord, but sometimes they are, you know. Sometimes that person that comes in on Sunday morning, like I mentioned in another lesson, they saved up all their energy to come to that service, and they're wiped out. You know, and those of us who are young, I say us, those of you who are young, may not be able to relate to that, right? You know, it's like, I never run out of energy. I don't understand. But some who are older, even older than me, understand that maybe very well. So, also, I think about that group, and I won't spend much more time here, but I think about that group and their background. I grew up in a family, and perhaps you did, maybe you didn't, but I grew up in a family, if the doors of the church building were open, we were there. You know, it wasn't a question of, are we going? That decision had been made when my parents came back to the Lord when I was 8 years old. We never missed a service after that we could be in. You know, we just grew up. You know, you just knew Wednesday nights where we'd be. Sunday where we, you know, that's the way I grew up, but not everybody grew up that way. And so they have more to overcome, and maybe they came out of a lot different situation, and they're still growing in their understanding. So we should be patient and encourage and see if we can help them to move up a level. In fact, wherever you are on this level, and I suspect most of us are pretty far down this list, but wherever you are on this list, I said down, let's go the other way, move up a level, you know? Let's see if we can challenge ourselves, stretch ourselves a little bit, out of our comfort zone, out of where we are now, move up a level. So that group can move up to the second level. What's the second level? Second level is attending all services. And there are people who they're there every time the door's open, but that's the extent of what they do in the church. They attend, they worship, they bring their Bible and they listen, and then they go home. That's what they do. So that's the second level. A third level is, and each one of these builds on the previous one. So the third one is all services plus social activities. All congregations do things together, you know. Young people may, go out to Taco Bell after the Sunday service, or they may have a day where they go to Six Flags or whatever the amusement park is, or the senior group goes to some place where they harvest apples and spend a day over there. Social activities. And there's some people that you plan a trip to a music park, they're on board with that. I'll be there Saturday for that. So that's not bad, that's good. It's not as good as we're going to see as we move up the list, but that's good because they're interacting with the Christians and they are encouraging each other, so that's good. But the next level is better. All those plus work activities. Now you're getting into what fellowship really is. We talk about a fellowship meal. Well, that's not a misnomer, that's fine. But fellowship's not about eating casseroles together. Fellowship is about joint participation. Now that's joint participation in encouragement. That's fine to say that. But we are also fellowshipping each other when we're in worship. We're also in fellowship when we go door knocking and to get the gospel out. We're also in fellowship when we go to the nursing home and sing with the older residents there. There's different kinds of fellowship. And work fellowship is better than social fellowship. So, at work activities, and I'll just mention Titus 2:14 here, which says, mentions in the latter part of that, zealous of good works. So that's what we're talking about here. I haven't really looked back there in your 4 area, but every Church of Christ building I've ever been in had a sign-up list back there. Sign up for clean the baptistry, sign up for mow the lawn, sign up to host the preachers, got visiting preacher for lunch, sign up for, there's always a sign-up list back there. And a lot of times, at least at Jacksonville, there's a table full. There's a lot of things you could be involved in. So here's my question. This is the application part of the lesson, one of them. A person who is zealous of good works. How many lists would his name be on, or her name be on out there? See, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where, Well, I don't want to be too hard on you. I've been, there are some situations where you can't do that. We had an elder who, for a while, he's passed on now, good man, but he sold band instruments, and his region was like the South, so he was on the road. He worked a lot in South Georgia. That's like 7 or 8 hours from Jacksonville, Alabama. So in that situation, he was doing a lot, but he wasn't able to do everything the church was doing because of his job. And here's the mom of 4 small kids. That's a job. That's a church job right there, isn't it? Don't we want those children to grow up to be Christians and to love the Lord? So she's got her own Bible class in her living room every day, right? So I'm not being overly harsh here, but I am saying that if there's a good work to be done and I can be involved in it, then I want to put my name on the list and I want to show up for it. So that's level 4? So all services, social activities, plus work activities. The next level is all of those plus leadership or teaching program. This is a whole other level So if you're a man, a brother in Christ, and the elders come and say, we're looking to add another deacon. We think you might be good at that. Would you take that on? And there's some, I've known some, who say, well, no, I don't think I want that kind of responsibility. Sometimes a man's asked to serve as an elder. Now, I understand that desiring the office is part of the qualification. But my heart says something about what I desire to accomplish in my life. In other words, so I should examine it. If I have the opportunity and have the talent, have the qualified, and the church needs me, then that would be a good opportunity to say, yes, I want to be involved in that way. But at any rate, that's another level. If I have opportunity to serve in leadership, then I take that on. Or for the women, also for the men, but especially for the women, what about being involved in the teaching program? I have been in a lot of congregations through the years. I don't think I've ever known one that had a teacher's wait list. I really want to teach, but it's not my turn yet. Well, that'd be awesome. But I have known education directors, a.k.a. elders or deacons sometimes, who are scrambling around saying, we got to get a teacher for the 3-year-olds next quarter. Could you do that? So they're out beating the bushes. Well, we ought to take our turn in that and give if we have an opportunity and ability, take your turn. Teach those, whatever age is your, maybe you're most familiar with this age because you've got grandkids that age, or you especially. We have a lot of teachers in Churches of Christ, and they're qualified for elementary ed or secondary or whatever. So it may be that they can take on the 4th grade because that's what they teach all day, every day. There really no 4th graders, so they can bring that secular education, the ability to teach and bring it in and use it spiritually. So that's level 5. Level 6 is all of that plus organized evangelism. This is where it begins to tie in with what we're hoping to accomplish today. Organized evangelism, what's that? Well, if the church has a door knocking day, for instance, we're having a gospel meeting in 2 weeks. We want to meet this Saturday, and we have flyers printed up. We're going to canvass the area and just invite everybody to come. Well, there's some that can't do that because of various reasons. Work, maybe they're not mobile anymore, can't walk and get around as well. But some people don't do it because I'm afraid to talk. Well, be the silent partner. Usually I have 2 people at the door, but only one of them talks. Say, I'll go, I'll drive the car, I'll walk up there with you, but you do the talking. Okay, there's some people that love to talk, right? So let them talk. That's good. And you just smile. That's your job, is smile. That's organized evangelism. You also have visitation programs that fall in this category. Visitation programs serve various purposes, but one of them certainly is evangelism. So the elders say, we're going to kick off a visitation program here this next year, in the beginning of the year. We're going to divide our members into 4 different groups, and we'll meet. We had a really good program, and I would recommend this one. I didn't invent it. I heard about it somewhere, but it had these characteristics. You meet once a month in somebody's house. Don't use the church building unless you have to, because it's better to get to know each other in each other's homes. So meet once for a meal, once a month, in somebody's house. Number 2, the members make 1 visit a month.
Where?
All right, how do you get the visits?
Well, are you talking within the church or outside the church?
It's both. So let me talk about, that's a good question. Let me talk about that a little bit. So you have one man who's the director of it, over it. So he collects, and people know that, so they may go to him and say, so-and-so is a little discouraged. Sure could use some cards or a visit. So he writes out his list. So he has a list. The people that visit the services, on Sunday. Well, before the next Sunday, somebody's contacted them and thanked them for coming and maybe made some cookies and made a front door visit. That means what that says. You don't go in their house. You just knock on the door. Because people don't want, do you want people to surprise you and come in your house? Most people don't nowadays. It used to be different, but that's the way it is now. So it's a front door visit. You just knock on the door. I'm Church of Christ. I met you Sunday, and my wife made you some cookies just to say thanks for coming, and I got to go. You know? They leave. You leave. They're smiling. You go in their house and sit in the middle of their clutter or whatever. They didn't know anybody was coming over, and they're like, "Oh, I feel so bad." You know, you don't want people to feel bad about church, right? So be smart. Be smart about it. But that's the kind of visit. Shut-ins, widows, the sick, visitors to your services. And as we go through the day, we're going to talk about prospects more, so you can add prospects to that. But you have to be, that has to be handled more delicately. And the other point on this before I move on is elders and preachers make the hard visits in that visitation program. What's a hard visit? Somebody that's upset. Somebody that's got his feathers ruffled, you know, or somebody that, whatever, you know, it's like, well, that makes sense that the leaders ought to do that, and also that those who are older and experienced and are really plugged into the history of the church can make those kind of visits and do well with, you know, do better than somebody that might say something or be immature and get upset because the other person's upset, and then it just blows up worse. So that's very rare, but there are often hard visits that need to be made. So just that you have an elder on each team if you have enough elders, or you have an elder and a preacher on each team. So you got somebody that can make that visit. And the way it's set up, you got somebody visiting every week. So you got 4 groups, 4 weeks in a month, meet once a month. So the visitors from every Sunday get visited that way by a different group. Right? All right. Then the last, number 7 on our list is all of those plus unorganized religion. I started to say disorganized, but that'd be the wrong word. Unorganized religion. What does that mean? Nobody needs to plan it for me. I know people that go in their community and door knock when it's not door knocking day, right? They just go to their neighbors. But it's not really about door knocking. I believe in door knocking, but I can point you to people that obey the gospel because somebody knocked on the door. So I believe in it, but it's not always the most effective. The most effective thing we do is concentrate on the people that we know and who know us and already trust us. So it's more about who we are than what we do, right? Matthew 10, I want to say this is verse 8, but you can read the whole chapter and you'll find it and see some other good stuff too. But it's in Matthew 10 where Jesus sent out the limited commission. He said, as you go, preach. Let that sink in for a minute. That's different than the Great Commission. Go ye into all the world. So that's a target area. Go to the world. Well, it can apply in this same way, but this wording lends itself to that more. As you go. So as you go to the store, as you go to the cornfield, as you go to the ball game, as you go, wherever you go, as you go, preach. So that just says that's who I am. I'm just talking to people about the Lord that I happen to come up on today. So I'm bold in that way, or I'm motivated in that way. So those are the 7 levels. And you can find yourself on there, and the goal is to move up a level. The goal, I guess, would be to move to the top, but all of us tend to go in stages, so maybe just go one level. When I sort of get good at that, I can go up another level. Now let's talk about the 10 levels of evangelism. This series is called, the first 4 lessons in this series is called, Let's Bring Back Amateur Hour. Because I'm afraid that in some churches, we have made evangelism elitist. We've made it for the professionals. In other words, we hired a preacher. He'll do our evangelism for us. Or we've got elders. That's their job. Should preachers be evangelists? Yes. Should elders be involved in evangelism? Yes. But if that's all you've got working in your congregation, you're not a New Testament church. Because that's not the way the New Testament church was. Acts 8. Actually, in Acts 8, the leadership stayed home and everybody else went out. It's sort of the backward of the way we do it. But the leadership was still teaching. They just didn't, they weren't scattered abroad. But so we want to all be involved. And what we have done is made it too hard. What we have narrowed the focus of what evangelism is, and then, I can't do that. But that's wrong. It's not one thing. It's not sitting down at your kitchen table with an open Bible with someone who's not a Christian and teaching them. I mean, it's going to get to that. But that's not all that's involved in evangelism, a long shot. So, we may talk about it later today, but I'll go ahead and say it in case I don't. As a church, we need to hunt as a pack. Now, that's a negative, predatory concept, but I want you to see the idea in it. Like a lion, lions actually hunt as in a pride. Some predators hunt singly. But you take wild dogs. I was in Africa years ago, and we drove through Serengeti National Park. It's a very interesting place. But there are wild dogs. I remember that were just all around it was like a Land Rover or something, but all around us. I had never seen wild dogs, before. But they are very smart, and they are very efficient hunters because they hunt as a pack. One by himself wouldn't be able to bring down a wildebeest, right? But the pack can. Now, that's negative as far as the carnivore aspect, but I want us to see the cooperation aspect because a church is much more effective in evangelism if all of us are involved with the person who we're trying to lead to the Lord than just the person who's doing the Bible study. So how do we get involved? We'll talk about that more as we go through this list. All right, here we go. 1 through 10. I will say that 9 out of the 10, any member of the church can do. And 1, most members can do. But any member, you might disagree, but wait till you hear them before you decide, right? All right, here's the list. Number 1, first level of evangelism is greeting, a greeter. How long do you have to make a good impression on a visitor who comes to services?
7 seconds.
Says an insurance guy. That's right. It's a very small window. And certainly that first visit will determine whether there will be a second one. And it's not always about what was preached that day. It's often about how awkward I felt or how welcome I felt. Like, well, these people are regular people. I felt like I had been there before. We felt like I'd been friends. That's what you're aiming for. So, greeter, let me turn that around. You might say, well, greeting, you could put Romans 16:16 on that passage. Greet one another with a holy kiss. The kiss there is not significant as far as that was cultural, but the greeting is significant. Now, we shake hands or we bump knuckles or we may hug or some people don't want to be hugged. Some people don't want to shake hands, so just let them determine that. We just want to be friendly. So whatever so I'm a hugger, so if you're a hugger, that's fine with me. But some people are like, don't you be touching me, I get that, that's fine. So you want to find that comfort zone and make people feel welcome. Now, let me turn it around another way, though. Have you ever been, say, on a vacation and gone to a congregation that wasn't friendly? I won't give you the state, it's not anywhere near here. We were on vacation not too long ago, 2022. Wednesday night, got there, Googled, found a congregation not too far from where hotel was. We got there about the time it started. There was a greeter, a signed greeter, you could tell by the door. And he shook my hand. And most of the people had already made their way into the auditorium, so we went and we sat down. It was a much larger congregation building than this. We sat about where Ken is, maybe where Constable Bob is, but there are a lot more pews in front here. It was big, But the guy did a great job in the Bible class. I saw nothing that indicated they were not sound congregation. But they had that break on Wednesday nights that a lot of churches do, between the lesson and the Devo, or the invitation, 5 minutes or something. So we sat on our bench, and everybody started talking to each other. Not a single person acknowledged that we were in the building. I felt like I'm either invisible or I got leprosy. I'm not sure which, right? And then on the way out, I think if I hadn't have gone up, I'm a preacher, so I went up and made people shake my hand. But I don't think that anybody would have if I hadn't have been the initiator. Now, how did they know? They didn't know who I was. They didn't know if I was just visiting from down the street, checking this church out. They didn't know I was a gospel preacher. So I attended church next Sunday, right? It didn't impact me, but it might have somebody else. So be a greeter. Remember, you can talk to your friends anytime. Talk to visitors first. And don't call them visitors, call them guests. Guest is a more positive term. Number 2. Second level of evangelism is prayer. There are some people who can't get out and knock doors. We mentioned there's some people who, because of either physical limitations or job restraints, they're not able to do as much as they would like, maybe even any personal Bible studies. Some people can do more, though, bedfast by prayer than an able-bodied person does all week long in the church. Because they can move the hand that moves the world, because they have a talking relationship with God. Now, this doesn't just mean pray in general. This is an evangelism list, so this is a specific kind of prayer. So make a prospect list. I would suggest 10 names. 10 names. And you can have those from your own circle, or you can elicit input from other people, like who they're working with, who they want to see saved. So you make that list, 1 to 10. And then pray every day for the list. Now keep that list long term, because the greatest joy is to get to mark a name off because they've obeyed the gospel. And then you want to replace that name with somebody else, of course, or move the others up and add one to the bottom. Prayer is powerful. Romans 10, 1-4, Paul said, my heart's desire and prayer for Israel is that they might be saved. So he was praying for people to be saved. Now, they can't be saved without the gospel. They can't be saved without someone teaching them. But prayer can help facilitate those circumstances. Now, number 3, a giver. A giver. And then again, this is not just my Sunday contribution that I'm already making. Being an evangelistic giver means that I'm using my monetary resources to do what I'm not able to do physically or not willing to do physically. For instance, let's say you bring in a missionary and he gets up and makes a report. Maybe the church is supporting him every month. But you listen and you think that man's doing a good work for the Lord, and you give him one of those $100 handshakes on the way out, It's like, I want to help, I want to participate. Or you get him over sort of the side and you say, if somebody wanted to make a contribution, what address would they send that to? And he will give you that information. Probably already did. It's probably on the handout, that he passed out earlier. And you just say, okay, well, this is going to be our family's or my personal project. We're going to contribute $300 a month to this work, if we can, or 100 or 30, whatever it is that I could. And maybe even I make a sacrifice. I say we will, instead of going out to eat every weekend like we normally do, we'll just go out 2 times a month, and we'll give that extra money to the missionary. You could say, I'm doing away with my cable TV. And does anybody have cable TV anymore? Anyway, I'm going to sacrifice something and give it to the missionary. All right, so a giver. You could even send out house to house, heart to heart to another area. And you could say, well, how much would it be to cover this zip code here, or this route, the next route over, or to send it the other times we're not sending it? Say, well, we have people in the program that single-handedly send it out to their community every month, just because the elders decided not to do it or couldn't afford to do it, and they said, well, they went to their elders and they said, well, if I paid for it, could we do it? Yeah, that'd be good. So they do. So I could do that. So that's a giver. That's number 3 on the list. Number 4 on the list. I'm going to go to 10 till since we started 5 after. Is that okay? And then I'll probably just pick up. This is an all-day thing, and it has a topic for every, not all day. We're going to supper, yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to let you go.
Well, if the elders let me go, I'm going to eat supper. Otherwise, you bring me back a burger or something, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to stick strictly to the announced topics, the announced hour. So we'll just go through this material. Some of it will take longer. Like these 17 things take a little while. Anyway, let me do the next one, then we'll take our break. 4, is this 4? 4 on the list is reporter. Reporter, like a newspaper reporter. But what this is Acts 2:47, the first sentence. So 2 sentences in that verse. The first sentence says, and having favor with all the people. Maybe that's just the first part of the verse anyway. How did the people, now the church is in Jerusalem, and they're excited. They're a 3,000 member church right off the bat, and others are being added every day, so it's growing. And well, that got noticed in the city, right? People are like, what's going on? And so everybody around them didn't think negatively of them. They thought positively. They had favor with all the people. Those are the non-members. Now, here's my question. How did the non-members know about it? Do you think that the members were out talking about the church? Oh, yeah. This is the most exciting thing they'd ever been a part of. They were saved. They had found the resurrected Lord. I mean, they were they were out in the community just reporting. This is not, hey, you need to be baptized. Do you know that? It's not that direct. It's just, well, let me tell you what happened Sunday. Anybody can do that. Anybody can say something positive about the church. And may I also insert this? Don't ever air the dirty laundry of the church in the community. Do churches have problems sometimes? Yeah, it's made of people, right? The divine side is perfect. It couldn't be improved. But our imitation of it is sometimes lacking. And that makes sense. I mean, we're not perfect because we're human. Second, we're also at a growth process. We got baby Christians. They're going to mess up. We got people that never applied themselves very, very much to learn the Bible. Yeah, some people are, I'm glad they're coming even if they're ornery. Because maybe we can help them, right? But if you're the ornery guy, tone it down. But sure, don't go out and talk about, well, that church up there I'm a member of, I'm just about sick of that place. How are you ever going to lead someone to the Lord if you run down the only place where they can find the truth, right? So never. Now, I know sometimes when a church is going through something, it's very traumatic. I get that because the church means so much to us that it's traumatic. It gets at our very core. But be careful to put the bridle on the tongue. If you need to talk to someone, talk to somebody that's not going to hurt their opportunity to find the truth. Talk to your spouse or talk to an elder or talk to a strong Christian if you need to, and especially talk to the Lord about it. All right, we'll take our break here, and we'll come back and we'll pick up at number whatever's next. Number 5.
10 minutes.